As some of you may know, I grow and sell succulents and other plants for a living. Every other weekend, I sell at the local markets and get to talk to a lot of fellow plant lovers. Because I sell different size plants as well as ornamental pots, customers often try and match succulents with pots they like. And unfortunately, one is often bigger than the other. And so inevitably, one of the FAQs is whether succulents can be downsized and planted into a smaller pot. The answer to that is yes, you can most definitely downsize succulents and other plants for that matter. Just look at the great variety of plants that can be used to create bonsai. However, there is a but and a fair amount of warnings in regards to types of succulents you should use, as well as care advice I would like to go through in this video. Pretty much any succulent can be downsized. These guys are amazing at growing from cuttings, so if most of the root ball is hacked off to fit a smaller pot, succulents will tolerate this. But not all succulents will tolerate it equally well, and some may need more care than others. In addition to that, your climate and weather is likely to influence how well a downsized succulent will grow. But let's have a look at these two things individually. First, let's see which succulents will have no issue with being downsized and will also keep looking nice in a smaller pot with minimal care. These are super hardy varieties that will tolerate being root bound once their roots inevitably outgrow the smaller pots. I'm going to generalize a bit, and while mentioning individual species, I'll mostly talk on genus level, otherwise we'd be here for hours. I'm also going to separate the outdoor sun-loving succulents from indoor, as many of the plants I'm about to mention are not suitable to grow in the average home long term. First, let's cover the sun lovers. Most Graptopetalum species and cultivars such as this Graptopetalum paraguayans are super duper tolerant of being shoved into smaller pots and will need almost no care. The hybrids using Graptopetalum as one of the parents also tend to be very hardy, so most Graptoviria or Graptosedum like this Graptosedum verohiggins will be good for downsizing too. Crassula ovata and its hybrids such as the Gollum are my favorite plants to use when planting in smaller pots. They are very tough, can be used as bonsai and will grow outdoors as well as indoors. Sedum with thick leaves like the Rubrotinctum here are easy plants too that will tolerate a lot of neglect and tough growing conditions. Again, hybrids using one of these tough sedums such as Sedaveria will be fantastic as well. I'm hesitantly going to include Echeveria here, but beware, some Echeveria, especially hybrids, can be difficult to keep alive. However, there are good hardy Echeveria cultivars you can easily downsize. Just so this video doesn't go on forever, I'm going to tag a few videos at the end that talk about hardy Echeveria and succulent species in general that would all tolerate downsizing. If you're hoping to put your pot indoors, I'm afraid your options are a bit limited, but there's still a good selection you can do this with. Aloe, Gasteria, Haworthia, Ripsalis and Sansevieria are all great shade-tolerant succulents that will also be okay with being put in a smaller pot. But even these succulents will need reasonable light and should not be placed in dark rooms. Basically, better the light, healthier your succulent. If you're interested in a more in-depth video about indoor succulents, I'll tag one right at the end. The how may seem a bit drastic, but succulents will be fine with this kind of treatment. We're going to do two pots, one for indoors and one for outdoors. For indoors, I'll be planting this Haworthia fasciata zebra into a little mermaid pot, which is about a third of the size of the pot the Haworthia is currently in. And yes, I know the mermaid doesn't have a hole, but this is fine for indoors as long as you only water on average once a month. See the video at the end for instructions on how to grow succulents in pots with no holes. If you are worried about not having drainage, that's fine, you don't have to use pots without holes, or you can drill one in. First, we're going to take the plant out of the pot and shake all of the potting mix off. I'm also going to remove this pulp and the flower, as the plant has to put out extra energy to grow these. However, they can technically be left on, it's not that big of a deal. I really just want the pulp to propagate, as it will be wasted being left attached. It will not grow much in the small mermaid pot. Now we're getting to the drastic part. Some of the roots will have to be removed in order for the Haworthia to fit in. This will delay the Haworthia getting root bound and will allow me to put more fresh potting mix in, which will equal more energy for growing. Indoors, succulents tend not to grow as fast and big as they would outdoors due to lack of light, so do not expect much from them, especially when they've been downsized. With Haworthia, try go for the brownish looking roots, as they are the oldest ones and will eventually die off on their own. When planting succulents in pots, it's always best to use good quality succulent potting mix, as it will deliver the right pH and nutrients. Put a bit of potting mix at the bottom, then place the plant in the middle and keep adding potting mix around the sides, pushing it in as you go. You don't want the plant to become loose and fall out, so try to push the potting mix in every empty space, which will anchor the plant in. And there she is. I think the Haworthia really suits her. You can add pebbles to make it more neat, it's really up to you. I'm going to put her in my house now, and we'll make an update in about 5 to 6 months to see how the Haworthia is traveling. Now for the outdoor succulent. We'll be putting Graptopetula mendozae in these cute little pots. The blue pot is considerably smaller, but it will work. It's also got this gigantic drainage hole, so I'll have to put a stone in, otherwise the potting mix will fall out. The mendozae is pretty root bound now and kind of looks a little like a bonsai, with the thick leaning stems and compact rosettes. Just like before, we'll shake off most of the potting mix and pull the majority of roots. I know this looks mean and rough, but the mendozae is going to be okay. I'm also cleaning it up a bit and taking off any dead leaves and branches. Sometimes root-bound succulents will perk up a bit after you take off all the old soil and roots. I think I'll be seeing a bit of growth on this plant fairly soon, despite the harsh root haircut. And just like with the Haworthia before, first put a bit of potting mix at the bottom, then fill in from the sides. I think that's rather cute. The mendozae goes pretty well with the little pink flowers on the pot. I'm also going to make an update on this pot a few months down the track. Succulents can stay in a smaller pot for many years with the right care. If you downsized an outdoor succulent and live in a climate with hot summers, it is best the pot sits in a spot with morning sun followed by afternoon shade or under shade cloth. You'll really need to watch your succulents during heat waves, as they can burn easily and may be best off in bright all-day shade if the temperature goes over 35 degrees Celsius or 95 Fahrenheit. In cooler climates where summer temperatures don't often go over 30 degrees Celsius or 86 Fahrenheit, full sun should be fine. Most succulents are not frost tolerant, and so it's best you bring your pots indoors and place on the brightest windowsill if you experience frost and snow often during winter. Do water well, as in smaller pots, succulents can dry out very fast. The best rule that works well for me is to water when the potting mix has dried up from the previous watering. You'll also need to repot once or twice per year, as there's not going to be many nutrients available to the plant. It's very likely your succulents will become root bound like this, which will hinder growth and can even cause its death. You can repot into the same pot, in which case we'll pretty much do the same as we did at the beginning. We're going to shake off as much old potting mix as we can and then simply use fresh new potting mix and replant into that same pot. You can do this with your indoor succulents as well, though you may only need to repot once a year or even two, as indoor succulents will not grow as much. You will also not need to water much when your succulents are indoors. I roughly water mine once per month and almost not at all during winter. And that is that. I really hope this video was useful, and if you have anything to add or want to ask a question, you can do so in the comments below. To learn more about succulents, hit the subscribe button or go to succulentgrowingtips.com. Thank you very much for watching.